If you are always available, you are forgettable. Have you ever noticed that often what seems out of reach immediately becomes more desirable? It's curious, the more someone pulls away or shows no need for others' approval, the more fascinating they become. This happens in personal relationships, in the professional environment, and even in small interactions. There is a silent paradox here. By becoming less available, you begin to attract more attention. But why? Human beings, by nature, are driven by desire. We crave what we cannot have. We seek what seems special, rare, almost unattainable. And that's precisely why the unattainable becomes so magnetic. It symbolizes value. It suggests there is something there that is not easily given, and this triggers our instinct to conquer. Stoic philosophy offers a valuable clue to understanding this dynamic. According to the Stoics, true freedom arises when we stop being hostages to unrestrained desire and begin to control what really matters: our own reactions, our choices, and above all, our internal value. When someone embodies this attitude and becomes self-sufficient, something shifts in the air. This person is no longer trying to please, not begging for attention. They simply are, and that, paradoxically, is what most draws others' attention. But be careful. Being unattainable does not mean adopting a cold or distant demeanor. It's not about building walls around your heart. Rather, it's about having clarity about who you are and not negotiating that for acceptance. It's about being solid while the world sways. This delicate balance is what separates true personal power from a mere attempt to seem important. The problem is that few realize that, by desperately seeking others' approval, they become predictable and, over time, disposable. Those who constantly need to be seen end up being ignored, but those who are self-sufficient, they become memorable. Now that you have begun to see this paradox, it's time to go deeper. Why is the value of scarcity so powerful in human relationships? And what really happens when you stop being so easily accessible? Deep down, we all know what is rare seems more valuable. From gemstones to unique experiences, what is difficult to obtain automatically gains a special shine. In human relationships, this logic repeats itself with almost instinctive force. When someone is always available, responds immediately, gives in easily, over time, they lose impact. People start to take their presence for granted, and what is taken for granted is inevitably underestimated. This is a phenomenon deeply rooted in psychology and even in economics. The law of supply and demand is clear. The lower the supply and the higher the demand, the greater the perceived value. The same happens in social dynamics. When you become less accessible, not out of arrogance, but because you have clear priorities and a firm sense of self, you naturally spark others' interest. The silent question arises: why isn't this person always available to me? What are they doing that is so important? The mystery is ignited. Think of everyday situations. That friend who is always ready to help, even giving up their own commitments. At first, they are seen as generous, but over time, others get used to it, begin to expect it, and even devalue their presence. On the other hand, the friend who has clear boundaries, who isn't always available but whose presence is intense when it happens. They are remembered, respected, and, curiously, more desired. This is not about manipulation. It's about honoring yourself. It's about understanding that time and energy are finite, and that giving them away indiscriminately dilutes your value. When you position yourself with clarity, you send a powerful message. My time is precious. I am precious. This does not push the right people away. On the contrary, it attracts those who truly recognize and respect your worth. In the invisible game of relationships, being scarce is being relevant. Being everywhere, for everyone, is the fastest path to becoming invisible. Now that the foundation is laid, let's go further. In a world where everyone seems to be desperately running to be seen, praised, and accepted, the one who walks in silence, without the need for applause, naturally stands out. Self-sufficiency is not isolation, much less arrogance. It is freedom. When you no longer need constant validation from others to feel good about yourself, a special kind of power begins to emerge, silent but deeply magnetic. The Stoic philosophy, which we have already mentioned, delves deeply into this concept. Epictetus said that it is not external things that disturb us, but rather our interpretations of them. And what is seeking approval if not a distorted interpretation that value comes from outside? When you break free from this illusion and understand that the true measure of who you are lies within, everything changes. Imagine this scenario. In a group of friends, there is always someone who shapes themselves to please. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny, agree to avoid conflict, and are always available even when it harms them. Now, observe the one who stands by their opinions, who is present only when they truly want to be, and who does not fear disagreeing. This latter person may not be the most popular, but they are respected, and, more importantly, they are free. Self-sufficiency is what separates who you are from what others expect you to be. When it takes root, you stop chasing. The desperate need to be included, approved, or loved dissolves. And, ironically, it is at this moment that others begin to see you differently. Because everyone, on some level, desires what you have achieved: emotional autonomy. As a thought inspired by Stoicism and Epicureanism wisely said, true freedom is needing nothing. This is the highest expression of personal integrity. This self-sufficiency becomes the foundation of personal power. It creates a field around you that communicates, without words, that you are whole on your own. And it is precisely here that real magnetism is born. After all, deep down, no one wants to connect with someone who begs for attention. But everyone feels drawn to someone who is so content alone that choosing to be with another is a genuine act of desire, not of need. There is a silent price to becoming unattainable, and it is, in fact, a disguised blessing. When you stop molding yourself to please and become firm in your own essence, you inevitably push certain people away, not because you want to, but because some simply can no longer connect with someone who is not available for emotional games or constant validation. This is natural. Many are accustomed to relationships where neediness and dependency are the glue. When they encounter someone who doesn't fit that pattern, they feel uncomfortable. Why are they taking so long to respond to me? It seems like they don't need me that much. These statements are not about you. They are about them. They are about their insecurities and the shock of meeting someone who has already done the inner work they still avoid. Repelling those who are not ready is not a loss. It's a powerful filter. Think about it. How many times have you kept people around who only drained your energy? Relationships based on convenience, where your presence was taken for granted and your value underestimated. By becoming unattainable to this kind of dynamic, you free yourself. You create space. This distancing, though it may seem painful at first, paves the way for something much more valuable. When those who do not resonate with your frequency leave, Those who stay or draw near are the ones who truly connect with who you really are. They are not there because they need something. They are there because they recognize and respect your essence. This elevates the quality of your connections. By becoming unattainable to the immature, you become irresistibly accessible to the conscious. And it is at this point that respect begins to emerge naturally, without you having to ask for it. Have you ever been in a meeting or a group where everyone was talking, but when a certain person started to speak, the entire room fell silent? It wasn't about tone or force, but about the density of their presence. This is the kind of authority that does not declare itself, but is recognized. It is born from the respect others develop for someone who doesn't sell themselves cheaply. This transformation happens quietly. Zen philosophy speaks often about the power of silence. In a world obsessed with exposure and noise, the one who knows when to remain silent and only speaks when necessary becomes almost enigmatic. And the enigma attracts. It does not confuse, it invites curiosity and respect. Implicit authority is born precisely there, in the conscious choice not to be available at every moment. In intimate relationships, this is even more visible. The person who does not need to control, who does not demand constant attention, but knows their worth and allows others to come to them, generates a special kind of attraction. They communicate, "I know who I am. You are free to come or go. I will remain whole." Not every silence is wise. When someone becomes unattainable, there is always the risk of crossing the thin line between self-sufficiency and arrogance. And the impact of this can be devastating to human connections. After all, while scarcity increases perceived value, too much of it can push away even those who genuinely care. The mature, unattainable person is not disconnected from the world. They are not cold or disdainful. They are selective. They choose where and with whom to invest their energy, but they do so without contempt. It's easy to mistake a firm stance for indifference, especially in a society accustomed to hyper-availability and the constant pursuit of validation. When you don't play that game, you will inevitably be interpreted by some as distant or even arrogant. But the issue here is intention and awareness. Being unattainable out of fear or pride is a fragile disguise. True strength lies in remaining accessible to those who truly matter and deserve it, without giving up your integrity. It is a balance between being solid and being empathetic, between setting boundaries and keeping your heart open. Think of the person who, feeling powerful because they need no one, ends up closing all doors. They are not admired. They are avoided. Their presence does not inspire. It intimidates or, worse, disinterests. Power becomes a barrier, and the unattainable, once magnetic, becomes irrelevant. Empathy is the antidote to this risk. When your actions radiate respect, both for yourself and for others, the unattainable becomes admirable, not arrogant. It's a matter of tone, presence, and intention. Saying no firmly, but without disdain. Being absent sometimes, but fully present when you are. The true unattainable person is not one who hides, but one who knows themselves so well that they know where to be, with whom to be, and above all, how to be. There comes a point in the journey when the game completely changes. When you stop measuring your worth through external eyes, something within you realigns. It's no longer about being desired, admired, or included. It's about you, and only you. This is where self-sufficiency solidifies. You are no longer distancing yourself to seem interesting. You are simply present for yourself, at peace with who you are. The ancient philosophers called this ataraxia, a state of imperturbable tranquility. For the Stoics, it was the ultimate freedom, the absence of inner disturbance. For the Epicureans, the sweetest of achievements. When you reach this level of inner alignment, the world's demands lose their urgency. You no longer need to be desired to feel valuable. Your peace is already your reward. And it is precisely here that the paradox completes itself. When you stop seeking approval, it appears. When you no longer depend on others' love, love becomes freer to flow to you. Relationships stop being contracts of neediness and become real encounters. This kind of transformation happens gradually, in daily decisions, in silent reflections, in small renunciations, and in reunions with your own essence. You become a magnet for what is real and a natural repellent for what is shallow. Everything in life calls for balance. Being too unattainable can turn you into an isolated, forgotten island. Being too accessible dilutes you until no one values your presence anymore. Between these two extremes lies the point where true strength is revealed. The space where you respect yourself without losing the ability to connect. Becoming unattainable is, above all, an internal movement. It is stopping the search outside for what should already exist within. It is not living at the mercy of others' reactions, but it is also about knowing how to balance. An impenetrable wall does not protect, it imprisons. So, how do you find this middle ground? Start with the simple. Observe where you give your time and attention without criteria. Reflect on which relationships demand too much without giving back. Take small pauses before responding to everything and everyone. Value silence. In it, you will discover that you don't need to explain yourself all the time. And, more importantly, you will realize that absence also communicates. At the same time, keep your heart accessible. It's not about closing yourself off from the world, but about opening up to what makes sense. True maturity lies in knowing when to come closer and when to step back. In understanding that value is not in the number of connections, but in their quality. If you ignore this, the risk is clear. You may continue living on autopilot, allowing your energy to be drained by relationships that do not deserve your time. Maybe today is the right time to review where you are allowing easy access to your energy, your emotions, and your time. And, by adjusting this, take the first step toward living as someone who, by becoming whole, naturally becomes unforgettable. If you enjoyed this content and want to understand more about life's questions, subscribe to the channel and share this video with others who are also among the awakened.